Hey, what is up guys? Welcome to MST.TV. This is Nishi here bringing you another Market Watch episode. So we are about to enter a really crazy time with the Yu-Gi-Oh market. We are going to have people freaking out about the different reprint sets coming up, the new master rule changes, a new ban list right around the corner, as well as new cards coming in like Dual Overload, Secret Slayers, and Eternity Code. With so many things just around the corner, there are a lot of changes that are bound to happen on the market every single week. So in today's episode, we're going to be taking a look at a bunch of different cards that have caught my attention over the last week or so. There is a lot of stuff we're going to be touching on in this episode, so let's jump right into it. Okay, so first up, let's take a look at Danger Jackalope. So the Danger engine isn't as broken as it was before when we had 3 copies of each Nessie, Jackalope, and Tsuchinoko, especially now that Nessie is hit to 1 on the most recent ban list. However, I think the Danger engine is still like a really good engine. Not broken, but a really solid one that provides free board presence, some draw power, and the ability to get key cards into the graveyard. Now there are only 2 copies of Jackalope available, both of which are quite hard to find, right? The secret rare from the Megatins, and then the Cybernetic Horizon ultra rares, which I believe were actually short printed relative to the other ultras in the set. Either way, you're looking at about $22 for a copy, and you're probably going to want to max it out and run your 2 copies. I don't really see the Danger engine getting hit any more than it already has. So if you're gonna be playing the engine anytime soon, it might not be a bad idea to pick these guys up before they get any higher. Now on a related note, there is also a buyout of Danger Tsuchinoko, but just the secret rare, as the ultras are still available for under $10 a piece. Now these ultra Tsuchinokos are definitely something that I would grab sooner rather than later if I were you, as I do think they have the potential to jump up in price the same way that Jackalope did. Next up, one that's kind of crazy to me, but we did see a mini buyout of Mystic Mine, where the cheapest copies on TCG Player are now about $6 a piece. Mine is in an interesting place right now. A lot of people, myself included, thought that mine would find itself on the ban list in some shape or form, even though we aren't actually seeing too much play or success from it recently. The deck still does have the potential to catch people off guard if they're caught without any sort of back row removal in non-monster form, or if they don't see their copies of Cosmic Cyclone, Twin Twisters, or Lightning Storm, they could potentially just lose to this card automatically. Now that being said, it's difficult to gauge just how much success mine will see at all in the coming months, especially with so many decks incorporating some element of back row into their strategies. Regardless, while the card technically is now more expensive, I don't see it going much higher in terms of price, and I don't really see there being that much of a demand for this card where it's gonna stay at this price point. It's really just kind of a niche card strategy that hasn't really seen too much recent success, and it is also due for a reprint in the 2020 Megatins this year. I would definitely hold on to a set for yourself, as it might potentially be an interesting side deck card or something like that, depending on the meta, but I would move the rest for this hyped up price while you can. Okay, so Droll and Lockbird has a history of reaching some pretty crazy prices, and now that we're seeing Spirals as a top tier deck this format, Droll and Lockbird has seen an increase in play as well, leading to some price spikes all across the board. So for the starter deck commons, you're looking at $8 a piece, rares $10 a piece, supers or ultras $14 a piece, and ultimate rares $80 a piece. You can tell that this is a pretty organic buyout rather than a forced one because of how the prices have kind of spiked up pretty consistently all across the board. $8 for a structure deck common is pretty silly, just like what we saw from Max C or Ash Blossom before. Anyways, I would be a bit hesitant to pick this card up right now. Now, I do understand that it is amazing in this Spiral matchup and whatnot, but we are due for a meta shift in just under 2 months, so you have to take into consideration if it's going to be a worthwhile investment for you if we could see an entirely different meta very soon. Now, we should also keep in mind that with reprint season right around the corner, we could definitely see Droll and Lockbird hit by a reprint as well. Now ultimately the choice is up to you, and while the card is very good against the best deck of the format, there are definitely a number of things that you should keep in mind before you drop your money on this card. Speaking of hand traps, one of the more popular hand traps this format has been Saiframe Gamma. This card is arguably the most versatile hand trap in the game, able to negate any activated monster effect while you control no monsters or while you control Lambda, so you could use it to stop cards like Drollin Lockbird when you're attempting to resolve Where Art Thou in Spirals, for example. It's also really strong in Lunalight Time Thief, which is able to search for Gamma using Lambda when you banish Redoer off of its own effect, which is really cool because you always have access to that negation. Now, because of how useful and versatile Gamma is, we did see both versions of it jump up in price. Ultras have jumped up to around $15 to $20 a piece, while even the relatively cheap super rare versions, which were only $2 to $3 before, are now a whole $7 a piece. Now, while I do think that this is kind of high, I think that this card is definitely a great card to hold onto as one of the stronger, more timeless hand traps that can be useful in any format. It does have the really obvious downside of requiring you to play Driver, the vanilla, but I would argue that the versatility of this card makes it worth it. Another obvious note here is that with only 2 prints available, I would be cautious of the possibility of Gamma being reprinted in either the Battles of Legends set this year or Dual Overload. And speaking of Saiframes, we have Saiframe Lord Lambda. Now, if you guys paid attention to my market watch last week, I recommended that you pick up your copies of Lambda for around $10 to $12 each. Well, I hope you did, because we saw a pretty big buyout of Lambda just yesterday. Now, while they did peak at around $30, they're already starting to settle back down at around $23 a piece. And I believe that in that market watch I mentioned that I thought they were going to be between $20 and $25. It does have that great synergy with Lunalight Time Thief, allowing you to search for Gamma off of Redoer, which is really cool. And I think that Lunalight Time Thief deck is actually going to be really strong in April, especially if it doesn't get addressed on the ban list at all. Now, Lambda honestly probably isn't going to see a reprint for quite a while, with both the BLS Link Monster and Lambda being cards that came out just under a year ago. I would guess that we don't see reprints of either until early 2021. Hopefully you can grab your copies now for between $15 to $20 a piece, because if the Lunalight Time Thief deck does take off, I could see this card very easily hitting $30 to $40 each. Now, while I did just mention the time frame for the BLS Link and for Lambda, I think another card that falls in with that timeline is Saiframe El Mirage. El Mirage is a really important Link monster in decks that use the Invoked engine, as it gets Alistair in the graveyard to provide Link fodder while you fusion summon, but also is a fire that can be used to make Purgatrio and push for damage. Now, this card has really low-key, steadily gone up in price. I almost didn't even notice it, inching its way up from $10 before to around $20 a piece now. Just like Lambda, I don't see it getting reprinted for quite a while, but also just like Lambda, I see it potentially being a really important card in April, as I think that the Mech Knight Invoke deck does have top tier potential when you don't have to worry about the zoning for your fusion monsters, and you also have the release of Mech Knight Orcus Girsu coming up in Eternity Code to search for that Mech Knight piece. El Mirage is another one of those cards that I would pick up your copy of now if you see yourself wanting to use it in the near future, so that you aren't scrambling to find it after it's jumped up in terms of price and is harder to find. Next up, Distrito is a pretty interesting card that has kind of steadily gone up over time, despite being mostly just a one-of. So Distrito has always been a really cool combo piece, as it helps to make level 7 or 8 synchros pretty easily in different combo decks, especially if you happen to use the Guard Dragon engine, where you can pull it out of the deck using the effect of LP. I think that the upcoming release of Needle Fiber is something that people are buying Distrito for, since if you have Distrito and then another monster in your hand, you can make Needle Fiber and start your crazy combos off from there. Now, there are only 3 printings of Distrito, as it had its original and Mega Tin rare prints, and then it was also an OTS Tournament Pack Super. The rares were looking at a whole $5 a piece, while the supers are about 8s. People seemed kind of caught off guard by this, but I think that this is something that has been happening kind of naturally as we get closer to the release of Needle Fiber, and people wanted to be prepared. I would grab onto your 1 copy just in case, and then sell the rest, though of course the card could be reprinted in Dual Overload as well, as it has been a couple of years since the last time we saw this card reprinted. Okay, so I swear, ever since the Master Rule changes were announced, we've seen a different Xyz monster get bought out like every single week. Like, we saw number 27 Dreadnought, we saw Bahamut Shark, we saw Utopia Kaiser. Well, this week is nothing different, as one of the more recent cards to receive attention was number 106 Giant Hand. Now, aside from the prize card versions, of course, there is only one printing of Giant Hand available, and that is as a gold rare. So under links, Giant Hand was pretty hard to use effectively, but now that you don't need to open up a zone for it, number 106 is actually a really useful card to have in your rank 4 toolbox, as it can negate the effect of a face-up monster as a quick effect, kind of like a breakthrough skill, and then also prevent it from changing its battle position, which might be useful in some situations. Now, while this card is cool, I wouldn't go too crazy for this card. It was only like a $3 to $5 card before, so I would probably be pretty reluctant to pay like a full $10 market price on this card now. Rather, I would wait for the hype to settle down or wait for it to get reprinted and then buy it then. Now, it's not necessarily something that's going to be meta come April, so there's no need to overreact for now. This is another one of those cards that you hold on to your one copy of it if you already have it, just in case, but then you sell your extra copies off into the hype. Alright, so this is a card that I actually talked about a long time ago when Lightning Storm was first announced, and that is Starlight Road. So Starlight Road, we've seen a bit of hype around the higher rarities of the card. So the Secret Rare and the Duelist League rares. Starlight Road can negate Lightning Storm, stopping back row decks from being blown out by the card. It's really cool in that it can also potentially summon you a Stardust Dragon, providing you with additional field presence and another negation. Now, under the current Master Rule, if you don't have a zone open, you can still use Starlight Road to protect your board, but then you just don't get the summon. But this card is even better under the next Master Rule, since you can then summon Stardust a lot more easily. So if you don't have your copies already, don't worry, there are several prints available. If you're looking for the higher rarities, Secret Rares are about 7 apiece, and the Duelist League colored rares are around 4 apiece, which isn't too bad. If you don't care about this card's rarity or you're just looking for the cheapest version, you should still be able to grab the rare copies for under $1 or so. Okay, and the final card we're going to talk about here is IP Masquerade. So I remember when this card was around $30 or so, and I told people to buy it because I thought it was comparable to Borreload Savage Dragon, and I thought it could hit $50 pretty easily. Well, I hope you listened to me, because now it is a $55 card. Basically, this is one of those link monsters that's always going to be relevant. There may be times where it's maybe not the ideal card to go into, but I feel like as long as you're playing a deck that can put 3 monsters onto the board, 2 to make IP and then 1 to link with, you should be running IP kind of by default. It's basically the closest thing we have to a staple link monster at the moment, aside from maybe something like Borrelsword Dragon or Appaloosa. So the one bit of potentially good news is that it's due to be reprinted in this year's Megatons, so theoretically by around August, which is about 6 months away. Now personally, I think that if you're planning on playing competitive Yu-Gi-Oh at all at any sort of event, you should definitely own this card and be playing it. It is just that good. If you don't own the card, the silver lining is that I would expect it to maintain its price over the next 4 to 5 months, right up until after Nationals. So if you do need to go out and spend the money on the card, you should be able to sell it back right after Nationals for pretty close to the same price, as it's probably going to continue to see high level play in most decks. Alright guys, that is it for this video. Hopefully you all enjoyed it and it was informative for all of you. This is a reminder that we do have the Shaddoll structure deck coming out this weekend, so be ready for that. I know I'm going to be meeting up with some friends on Friday so we can take a look at the deck, make sure that we know how it works, how to properly play against it. Also, Tombox should be posting an opening as well as like a basic Shaddoll list for if you guys want to try out the deck yourselves. Be sure to stay tuned to MST.TV on Thursday and Friday for those videos from Tom. Anyways guys, if you enjoyed the video today, please be sure to slam that thumbs up button for me, and of course leave a comment down below. Let me know what cards I maybe missed out on so that I can cover them in a future video and keep you guys as informed as possible. And of course guys, make sure that you are subscribed to MST.TV so that you can get all of the latest content from Tombox and myself. So yeah, until next time guys, have an awesome day. Peace out.